Hey, Fearless family, we are going to do something a little bit different for our tips, really for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Troy and I have just celebrated 20 years of marriage, and we decided to put together, I don't know, it's probably 12 to 13, maybe 15 tips.
However many letters are in
healthy marriage. And we've clipped them up, so every other week for the next 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to receive a 5 to 10 minute message regarding things that we have learned over the last 20 years about maintaining a healthy, thriving relationship. The reason why we felt like this was really important was for 2 reasons. We're starting a Unite Body, Soul, and Spirit interview series coming the following week. And so we decided to do a Unite marriage series on the tips. So we're really excited about this, and we've just filmed them all, and we think that they're going to be very helpful. So welcome to Fearless Tips Unite with Troy and Christy Boulware.
In Fearless Tips and Talks, you will find wisdom and strength to overcome fear and anxiety in a world that feeds it.
Have you ever wished you had someone to coach you through stress and anxiety? Someone you could just pull out of your back pocket to give you a quick dose of wisdom and encouragement. Now you can. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Tips. I'm your host, Christy Boulware. Hello, friends. We are back on the Marriage Unite tips here. We're about halfway through. We are now on the Y and the M on healthy marriage.
So we're at the end of the word healthy, so we have the Y, and then we're now at the beginning of the word marriage, so we have the M.
You got it.
Got it.
So Y, your kids.
I think I got it, but just in case,
oh my
say
word.
the whole thing. You know, pay attention.
Y is your kids cannot be more important than your marriage.
What? That sounds so mean.
I mean, people have pushed back a little bit on that. So what do you
heard a little bit on that one?
What do you want to say?
I think I just want to say without this love between us, your kids don't exist, you know? So why would you put, you know, something that was dependent on something else ahead of the whole reason it was dependent on? If our family is like a solar system, the love between mom and dad, the husband and wife, that's the sun, you know, and the existence of our children is, they exist, they from our love for each other. And from our love for each other. So if there are, if we get into planets, you know, if they're orbiting around our love, why would I put you, why would I put my wife on the outside of this solar system as like Pluto, Pluto, a planet or a moon that goes back and forth every few years. But why would I exalt the children and be pouring, or, you know, I mean, it's just, I guess it just, to me, it seems so obvious, but I can see why some people, they get to things where they're doing this and they're ignoring, or they're putting the marriage on the back burner. But your kids are not here without your love for each other. Yeah. And you are loving your children so well. I mean, they feel so loved, so safe and secure when they see mom and dad love each other. And that just feels like that's just a thriving home. And there's nothing you can do better, I feel like, to love your kids than to love their mother or to love their father.
And perhaps you might be listening to this and you're coming out of a divorce and you just fell upon this. I want you to know that you can do it again. You can start over, and that there is no condemnation in Christ Jesus. And maybe your marriage failed and it's not, you never found yourself in this place and you're like, gosh, and you're starting over again. And we love you. We love you. And we know, I can't imagine the pain that you've walked through to have to come out of a marriage that you thought would never end. And we just have so much empathy and compassion and grace for you right now. And sorry that you've walked through that.
Sorry, because that is not easy.
No.
And there, I think I just want to speak in, now you can still respect, you can respect their mother or you can respect their father. And then there's that allowance for respect and in front of them, that is so good for those children to see.
Yes. Co-parent
I know
well.
that gets so tough. Co-parent well. Yes.
Love each other well, even though the marriage didn't work.
And that's going to be so strong for your kids. And I know that that's just not always easy, and one side could be unhealthy and those various things. But, and that's sometimes that can probably be so sacrificial for one to be respecting the other one. It's maybe not mutually returned. But your children see that.
We were talking about this not too long ago, and you have an extraordinary memory. Your mom has a beautiful memory too, remembers everything. But you remember a time where you were young and your parents were having like a normal argument that all parents have, you know, like just a normal. And you told me you remember like shaking, up in bed, thinking like, oh my gosh, my parents are going to get divorced. And
it was just an argument, you know, a normal argument that was fair for them to have, to be discussing downstairs, but the way that rocks you as a kid. And I, you know, just remember like laying up there in bed, you know, hearing the conversation carry up the stairwell, you know, and just like, oh, please God, you know, keep my parents together. And
which just goes to show that sweet, just hope that children have, that they want their parents together, you know? And again, if you're in a failed marriage, that's okay. Like God can still show up. He can still redeem. And I love how you said, just do your best to sacrificially love, even through co-parenting.
Sure.
And, you know, giving that they gave life to your child, you know, so loving them and respecting them well, even when they don't deserve it is an act of.
And ultimately, sorry for interrupting, but, you know, as a result of our love, you know, children come into the world, we're raising them, and they're, you know, going to grow up and flourish, and we're still going to have our marriage. So I don't take you from being less important during a phase to like, oh, I got to make it important again. You know, like it should never be that way.
That's right. That's right. So our M is make important decisions together on tip 33 today. So make important decisions together. So this could be kind of tricky because it's like, wait, important? What's important? What do you guys deem important? What do you think? But
the Folgers or the Maxwell House coffee?
We kind of talked about, we think children, finances, how you spend your time, and your spiritual decisions. Like those are kind of like categories or buckets that we feel like these are super, super important, and you probably should talk about it. But talk about how, like, when we first got married, we talked about a lot more things because we were getting to know each other. But, you know, as you get to know each other, you won't necessarily discuss all of these things in detail now that we've been married 20 years.
Yeah, well, like we were on our anniversary, we were having this discussion of, it's amazing how compatible you end up becoming through marriage, but because it's like you're at the top of a funnel at first. So there's a lot of things to talk about, get on the same page about. And as you go through life and you're making these decisions together, you're discussing things, weighing in, you get a little more compatible where you start to know how the other one thinks. Doesn't mean, there's still big, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is it'll seem like a lot early in the years, and then it's probably happening less often because you're starting to know how the other one thinks. But, you know, big purchases, obviously, you got to do those things together, and there could be a different amount. I mean, I remember early in our marriage, it was like, if one of us is going to spend $50,
we talked
about it, you know, and, or you didn't even talk, because when you thought about that way to compatibly, you're like, yeah, it's probably not worth it, you know? But yeah, raising your children, you know, so having that time to discuss. And just rush. So you know, we don't have a $50 limit in our marriage anymore where we talk about that. It's a much higher. You think it's higher, and I don't think it says higher.
It's much higher now. What I don't want people to hear is like, oh my gosh, like, are they up each other's butts all the time? Are they always talking about it? And it's like, no.
I wouldn't up each other's butts.
Well, I just don't want people to be like, do I have any freedom in my marriage? It's not like that.
It's like, I shouldn't come home with a bass boat and $600 payment if we haven't discussed it or something, you know, that kind of thing. People are like, oh, well, you know, but that's not going to go well. children. So, and some of this stuff is also, you need to discuss it together before you're discussing in front of other people. Like you've seen that kind of get bad. Like, well, we haven't talked about this, but like,
well, just recently in our marriage, this was a very recent argument. Hold on. I'm going to tell the story where we wanted, I just learned this about Troy. I've kind of known it, but we weren't able to articulate it, but I like to go on vacations. I like to, and I like to put money aside in our budget for vacations. Yeah. And we were sitting around the table having a family dinner, and I was like busting, let me tell the story. And so I was busting out all these like ideas, and I saw Troy's like start to get like, like he was getting anxious and like, and you know, he kind of we were having an argument in front of our,
happening in front of the kids.
Right. Yeah. But then we had another argument in front of our financial advisor when we were trying to like work through this. And it was like, we had this aha moment that like, he doesn't necessarily mind us going on the vacation. He needs time to process.
I need to know it's coming.
He needs to know it's coming. So when I just all of a sudden sporadically be like, let's go here. It's like, he's like, oh. And so to love him and honor him well, I need to be thinking about vacations and come to him not in front of the kids, because then he looks like the bad guy when I come and,
not a week before spring break.
Kids are going to want to go on a vacation. Of course they're going to want to go on a vacation. Right. So like,
I was outnumbered on that one. Yeah.
You were, but I learned like to honor you. I need to talk to you about this, discuss this, not in front of the children. Let them know like my heart is that. And we I
need to see it on the horizon.
And we figured with our financial advisor, we need to start putting a little bit more money in the vacation fund, because that does matter to me. Yeah. I do want that. I do want to go on a vacation or so, and I want to plan for it. But if we don't have the money, obviously we won't do it. But if we do have the money, you know, that is important to me. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking like, people, husband and wife could be seeing differently on maybe when their daughter who's asking for someone's gonna have the cell phone. So let's say that were to come up with the daughter in front of the both of them, and then this discussions, that's not really, she needs to be removed from it so that you all get on the same page. Right. These kind of things can't happen in front of other people or do that stuff, because that's not fair. Now a person that's not seeing eye to eye is like,
exactly. And then pinning parents up against each other is always an ugly thing. So make important decisions together with your children, with your finances. Now, how about how we spend our time? Like what our kids, we've had a little bit of argument between each other on the kids' sports stuff, where all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I thought we talked about this. We're only doing this. And you're like, oh, it's just like for a few weeks or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
overlapping, like this one's finishing and this one's starting, you know?
So we've had to work through that and really talk about like our kids being, because every yes we say yes to is time, first of all, that we can't spend with God. It's secondly, with each other, if that's supposed to be a priority. Third, our family, who we're supposed to be. And then we have our callings in our lives. You have your job, your profession, but then also we're supposed to go and make disciples. And so everything we say yes to we got to talk about this and make sure, like, is this in alignment with where we feel God's calling and moving us to? And we haven't been fantastic about that, but we do know it's important, and we're trying to talk that through. So, hobbies, you know, what we talked about that in another tip. It's important for us to have hobbies, but we have to make margin for that. We have to talk about that. Vacations, we just told that big story, right? That we need to spend time discussing things before they come up. And then the last one is spiritual decisions. What Bible study you're starting out with, where your children are going to youth group, or what, you know, group they're being connected to, where you're going to church, if you go to church, like all that stuff matters, like, because it shapes your family. And so the husband and wife should be on the same page with what you're doing and the spiritual decisions that you're making within your family as well.
100%.
Okay, so today we talked about your kids can't be more important than your marriage, and M is make your decisions together. So we'll come back in a couple of weeks, and we've got 2 more tips for you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Fearless Tips and Talks. We hope you enjoyed the insights and advice shared today. If you love what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We'd also really appreciate it if you would take a moment to rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continuing to allow us to bring the best content possible to you. Hey, and we want to hear from you. Check out the show notes and use the fan mail feature labeled "Send us a text message" to share your thoughts, ask questions, or let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Remember, a life of no fear isn't the goal, but you can learn to fear less. We hope this podcast helps you achieve that. See you next time.